Hello everyone, Joshua Myers here, and welcome back to my Sleepaway Camp franchise review series. And today I'm going to be reviewing Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers from 1988.
There used to be this camp about 60 miles from here, Camp Arawak. All these kids started getting killed. Well, it ended up that the killer was the shy 14-year-old girl that everybody picked on. Except she wasn't...
Baby, you're supposed to be in the cabin. Let's go.
Wait, what happened to the killer?
Good night, campers.
Sleepaway Camp 2 stars Pamela Springsteen, Brian Patrick Clark, Renee Estevez, and is directed by Michael A. Simpson. The plot of Sleepaway Camp 2 is that the grisly murders that terrorized Camp Arawak have become favorite ghost stories around Camp Rolling Hills 6 years later. As each camper of the team learns the secrets about the murders, their carefree days at the summer camp come to an end. Now, before I get started with the rest of this review, I would like to say I have never personally seen any of the That's not true. I did see the first Sleepaway Camp film during my 31 Days of Halloween review series last October. And if you remember looking back at the review, I did not like it. I did not like the film. I was really hoping to like it because I've been hearing a lot of people talk about it, say how good it is, and it's a cult classic and everything, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll check it out. So I bought the Scream Factory release, and man, I didn't like it. There were a few, like maybe one or two things I liked about it, but I didn't like it. It was one film that I couldn't see myself rewatching again. And I was like, oh great, that means I'm gonna have to do the sequels too. And I will admit, you might be surprised by my thoughts. And honestly, to be honest, I was surprised by them. So let's move right into them. I actually got quite a few positives. One of which is the pacing. The pacing of this movie goes by pretty quickly. It's not as short-paced as, it's not as long drawn-out paced as the original. I did enjoy that. Also, to be honest too, some of the issues I had with the original movie, I think were fixed here. One of the issues I had with the original Sleepaway Camp 2 was the pedophile elements in the movie. I mean, you got this cook who's just all lusting over these kids and that, even tries to rape one of them, and I'm like, and for some reason people like this movie. And knowing that too, there were other stuff to coincide with me not liking the film. To be honest, I didn't like the twist. And here's the thing, I didn't stay all throughout the first movie. I basically was there for about 40 minutes. And here's the thing, I've heard of the twist. So the internet kind of spoiled that for me, but I do not like the twist. Mostly because how they... Okay, if you guys don't know already by now, because I mean, you probably if you have seen Sleepaway Camp 1, that the main character Angela is really a boy and everything, and was basically raised to be a girl and everything. And I felt like that just felt really offensive and everything. And I felt like it would feel really offensive to anybody who's transvestite or transgendered. Honestly, I don't know which term to use for that, so I felt pretty offended by that, and I'm not any of that. And plus too, what made it even worse too, that they didn't really make Angela much of a character really. She was just shy, didn't talk. I guess it could have worked, but the way they executed it in the original just didn't do it for me. I didn't find her relatable or anything. And that's one of the things I think they fixed with Sleepaway Camp 2, is first of all, they got rid of the pedo elements of the first film. And knowing that too, they made Angela much more of a character in this one. And knowing that too, she's portrayed by a different actress, which I think Pamela Springsteen actually does a better job as this character than Felissa Rose. She makes her, and the writing for her is much more like a real character, like a real person. And she's much more talkative in this one. She's quirky and everything. I actually did kind of grown to like Angela in this one compared to the first one. And knowing that too, they barely brought up the whole transgender, transvestite stuff, which I thought was pretty offensive. You know, they only bring it up so often in this movie, like... So basically, Angela, after she got arrested at the end of the first movie, she actually went to get help and everything. She went in psychiatric wards and all that stuff. And even got surgery and got a complete sex change. So yeah, and I kind of like how they handled that in this movie, and knowing that too. Again, the fact that they make her into an actual character, like I actually did like Angela and did feel kind of sorry for her. And her motivations for killing have changed in this one. This one is because if you're a bad camper or, you know, you are a bad person in general, then you're killed, you're axed off. And here's the thing about Sleepaway Camp 2. Sleepaway Camp 2 is much more of a comedy than the first Sleepaway Camp film. It's like the first Sleepaway Camp film plays it off as much more of a legit horror movie, with some maybe unintentionally funny stuff. This one, it's all intentional. It's a comedy, and I think honestly, I think that's what this series really needed to be, is a comedy and not just a straight up horror movie. So, because to be honest, if you look at the premise of the first movie and be like, and especially with the twist in that, it's like, I don't really see it as a legit horror movie, you know, like, I see that as more of the premise of a comedy, like a horror comedy. I like the fact that they kind of did that with this, and it's much more lighthearted in tone. I also did find most of the actors, while they don't give a great performance, they give an actually pretty serviceable performance. In here, we get relatives of famous actors in this, like Pamela Springsteen, Renee Estevez. I thought the acting for the most part was, again, pretty good. Honestly, I like the acting better in this one than I did in Sleepaway Camp, the first one. I think because, again, it's much more fun, it's much more comedy, and I actually did like the characters in this film better than the characters of the first movie, actually. And actually, too, it also pokes fun of other, like, it kind of makes nods to other horror movies, like, kind of meta in that way. So there's these two characters that basically try to scare Angela, who's now a camp counselor in, which I forgot to mention, at Camp Rolling Hills, actually. And basically, tried to scare her, and one of the teenagers is dressed up as Freddy Krueger. He did up his face and has the finger knives. And then there's his friend who is dressed up as Jason, has like a full overhead hockey mask and machete. And then later, like while trying to scare them, Andrew comes in dressed as Leatherface, actually. Has the whole face and everything, the chainsaw, and actually kills them with that stuff. Well, actually she kills the friend dressed like Jason with the chainsaw, but before she stole the guy's finger knife glove and actually slits the guy's throat. So that's pretty cool that was in there. So like, I really did like those nods in that. And to be honest, that's it with my positives. I do have some negatives, unfortunately, so let's get right into them. While I do think it's a much more fun movie, I think they could have toned it down, the cheesiness and corniness of it, because it is really cheesy, it is really corny. And even though I thought there were decent performances in this movie, again, they're not great. There's still some pretty bad, you know, acting in this, but at least it's more fun than the first one with that. Also, too, like, I think there's some sequences that could have been shot better. Like, for example, of course, there's a final chase scene between Angela and the main final girl, who is this character Molly, portrayed by Renee Estevez. And I thought it was pretty weak, you know, for the most part. Like, the whole chase scene, you know, it was boring. Let's say it was boring. It was shot boring. The music was kind of boring too with it. I would have done that whole chase sequence a lot differently to make it much more exciting and on the edge of your seat, while still being funny too. Also, the makeup effects aren't really that great in this movie. I think they're pretty cheap. You know, I think my makeup effects team could probably do something a lot better than this, like on the same budget too. I think one of the issues of this film, which I think the first film did better with, was the cinematography. That was one of my praises of the original film, was the cinematography, and this film doesn't really have that. I mean, it's decent, and there's some parts of it where it does look good, but I really prefer the cinematography of that to the original Sleepaway Camp. And knowing that too, without giving any spoilers in this one, the ending does kind of come off as a bit of abrupt in that, and it's like almost like not really much of an ending because you don't. And here's the thing, I like ambiguity endings and that. Like, look at the original Halloween, but this, it was just not executed right at all. But honestly, for me, that's it with my negatives. So with that said, I'm going to give Sleepaway Camp 2 a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I actually really did like this better than the first one. You know, I think there was a lot of things that this film did differently, and also in terms of improving the issues I had with the first one. You know what, if the first one was anything like this one, I would have loved it. And again, there's some things I think the first film did better with, like the cinematography and that. And then I think there's a lot more that this film does better with. But I heard that was one of the cases with people who like the Sleepaway Camp movies. There's people on one camp of it that, no pun intended, that really like the first one and don't like any of the sequels. And then there's people who don't like the first one and like the sequels. Which I think I'm probably on that camp, you know? Because I didn't like the first one, I did enjoy this one. Still not a perfect movie by any means. It's not like high-class cinema or anything like that. But this film definitely knew what it was. It's actually really entertaining, you know, kind of little backwoods slasher film. Actually, if the Blu-ray wasn't so expensive, I'd probably pick up the Scream Factory Collector's Edition of Sleepaway Camp 2. So that's it for this review. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.